Hey everyone, hopefully you can hear us and you're here. Thank you for your patience with all of the technical difficulties. Continue to email Sarah if you are having issues. Her email is sdodson@uoregon.edu, and we will try to keep this running as smoothly as possible. So I've said it about 1,000,000 times, but we are very excited to have you as part of Real Talk. It's our first, if you couldn't guess, virtual job search group. So we are still figuring things out, but we are very happy to have you. I'm Courtney. I work at the Career Center here, and I help with making our programming engaging and then also strategic communications. So making sure that you all and students know about what we do here. Before I came here, I did my undergrad in marketing, so business degree, and then I worked at Polaris Industries, which is ATVs, motorcycles, snowmobiles, and I did corporate marketing for them. So I got to do cool things like manage photo shoots in Long Beach, California, but it was not for me. So my background is in marketing, but then I went and got my master's in higher education to be here with you all. So I'm very excited to have you, and I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves quickly.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I am the program director for the Parent Professional Network, which is a network of parents that want to get involved in networking with current students. So I'm so happy to be here. We're so happy to have you. I'm a Duck through and through. I grew up in Eugene, went to U of O, graduated with a degree in journalism, and I've worked with U of O off and on for about 5 years, and we're so excited to have you.
Great. All right, so I'm going to go over to Linda now. Hopefully you all can see her.
Hi, I'm up north in Portland. My name is Linda Favero, and I'm the program director for Alumni Career Services. This program's been with the Career Center for about 7 years now. And before this, I'm actually a Duck. I graduated in '89, so I'm your senior fellow of the advisors for the job search group. And we've been doing job search groups. Actually, we've done 20 of them so far over the past 7 years. And it was Courtney and Sarah's idea to say, hey, let's try this here. So we're really excited to test it out with all of you and see what you think. Prior to working at the Career Center, I did law firm marketing. So I actually worked in the Career Center my senior year, ran the internship program there, had an 18-year career as a marketer, developing attorneys, doing a lot of career coaching for them, helping them with their marketing plans, office plans, and all that. And then similar to Courtney, it just after 18 years, it wasn't for me anymore. So I had the opportunity to go to graduate school and get a degree in management communication, and utilizing that degree, which is mostly organizational communication and my past history, to create this program for all of you now that you're all alumni. So welcome, we're excited for this job search.
All right, so Sarah, me, and Linda will be your main contacts throughout the program, and you should have all of our emails. If you don't, we can post them on the LinkedIn group, but any questions you have, anything you want to talk outside of the group, we're more than welcome to do that out of these 1-hour sessions. So first, we'd just like to say that we are going to be owning the awkward that is virtual communication throughout these 6 sessions. We're hoping that eventually we can figure out a way to actually communicate with you all and maybe see you all and chat with you all. So if any of you have brilliant ideas, feel free to let us know of different tools that we can use. But for today, we're going to work with on air and see how this goes. So I'm going to show you all just the schedule really quickly so you know what you're getting yourself into. 1 second here. Okay. So this is our first session. We are going to be doing personal branding after we kind of get through the detail-y stuff of how this group works. And then on Thursday, Linda and I are going to talk through resume and cover letter and LinkedIn, so some strategies of your brand. And then Linda's going to work with you all on the next Tuesday, July 14th, to talk about managing the job search process, the stress and the excitement of it all. And then next Thursday, we'll be talking about networking. Sarah and one of our other colleagues are going to give you some pretty cool networking tips and advice. And then we will be doing interviewing practice and prep. And then we'll end with a career action plan, and we'll tell you more about that later, and then with negotiations. So once you do get those job offers, which we are convinced you all will get, you will have some tools and tips to negotiate your way with that first position. So as we said in the email, or as I said in the email, if you can be a part of all 6 sessions, that's what we're hoping for. So if you're not able to, do please let me know as soon as possible. But what we're really hoping to do is build a community out of this group. So this isn't just hopefully for us to talk at you for 6 sessions. But we actually want you all to connect with each other. So we're going to be using the LinkedIn group to actually do that. So we'll be starting discussions after our sessions. I've already started one in there right now asking you all to introduce yourselves. You should have got an email from LinkedIn directly asking you to be a part of that group. It's UO Real Talk, and I can show you just really quick here what it looks like. All right. So you should be seeing, not the schedule, you should be seeing something like this on LinkedIn. And it's, again, UO Real Talk 2015. And as you can see, I've started that first discussion. So sometime today, if you can, we would love if you would introduce yourselves. And please include where you want to find a job. So I asked you what city you'll be participating from, but if you, for example, live in Eugene but actually want to find a job in Seattle, let us know that, because that's going to help us connect you with the mentor component. So as Sarah mentioned, she runs the Parent Professional Network, and she is going to connect you all with professionals that aren't necessarily in Eugene. They're throughout the United States that want to connect with UO Ducks. So we're going to use that city and information on what field you're hoping to go into to actually match you with the best person to connect with. And we'll tell you again more about that later, but if you could include that in introduction, that would help us a lot. So going back to things being awkward, we're going to try to have some community rules or guidelines, if you will, for that LinkedIn group, and then anytime that we're together. And so I'm going to run through these briefly, but please feel free to comment or start a discussion in the LinkedIn group if you would like to amend any of these, or if there's something you'd like to add. We really want this to be a safe space for you all, especially in job searching. It's stressful and it can be frustrating and embarrassing and all sorts of things. And so this is really going to be a place for you all to talk openly and authentically with each other about what's going on. So rule or guideline number 1 is to express positivity. So like I was just saying, job searching can be stressful. We all know that very well. And so as much as possible, even if you need to kind of steal positivity from someone else in the group, that's an okay thing to do. Go back and forth with each other and try to keep those positive vibes going. We want to make sure that everyone can share and participate in the group, and throughout this process as we work on getting the chat feature working. Forget the small talk, and what we mean by that is we're going to be together for a very short amount of time, and we're going to get real, no pun intended, very quickly. So forget the small talk and just kind of get into the uncomfortable stuff right away. We'll be uncomfortable with you. Instill confidence in each other, genuine compliments and encouragement we would love. Challenge each other too, though. So if one of your fellow group members is not working on their strategies as much as they had committed to, or if they're struggling in a way that you feel like maybe a little challenge would help, feel free to do that, and we will do the same for you all. And then last, connect each other. So the beauty of this group is that you all know far more people than we know. So we have our network, but you also all have your network. So all of us together can work to connect each other and get people some face time with people in the fields or industries that they're hoping to go to. So like I said, feel free to say, these ones aren't working for me, or make any additional community guidelines or rules. We would love to hear from you on how you all feel about this. All right, so I'm just going to switch back here. I'm working with multiple screens, so forgive me. Okay, so hopefully you see me now again. So what we just went over basically was all of the basics. So make sure you introduce yourself on the LinkedIn group. Let us know about any additions or changes to the community guidelines. Be sure to include where you're going to be job searching, the city or state or country that you're looking in. when you introduce yourself on the group so we can connect you with your mentor. And then own the awkward and be okay with how awkward this all is, specifically how awkward I am. All right, so we're going to get right into personal branding. So throughout these sessions, we're going to tell you all to kind of take a second and actually do some work on your own. So if you have, paper and pen, laptop, tablet, whatever you have that you're working on, we'll give you kind of a cue to say, okay, think through this for a little bit or work on this. Know that you are able to pause the session at any time and then join back in at the time that you left off. So if you actually are working on something a little bit longer than we give you time for, feel free to pause it, or of course you can actually do it after the session as well, whatever works best for you. But what we're hoping is that you walk away with something tangible after each of these sessions. So you're getting started on your brand today. You're going to get started on your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, etc. when we meet on Thursday. We don't want these to just be sessions where we're talking at you, but you're actually thinking about personally how this all fits into your job search process. So let's go ahead and get into personal branding. All right. It helps if you're on the right screen when you're trying to click through. Okay, so personal branding. The good news is, let me just say, and I would love to start a discussion about this in the LinkedIn group, but for some people, and myself included, branding just kind of feels icky to people. That's kind of a word that some of us shy away from. And so let me just put it out there that I completely understand if brand is an uncomfortable way for you to think about yourself or you in the job process. And if that is the case, really think about it in the sense of you getting to know you and putting your message out there. So if brand is weird, you don't have to refer to it in that way, and we understand. But again, let's start a discussion on that in the LinkedIn group, because I think it would be great to hear your all thoughts. So the good news about personal branding is you're already doing it. That's your crowd cheering for you. So your brand exists, or your image of who you are already exists. And what we want to help you do is just be more intentional and mindful about what you're putting out there. So one of my favorite quotes is, if you don't create your brand, others will do it for you. So other people are already doing that for you. They make assumptions about you. They have thoughts about you already. And we want to help you make sure they're thinking the right things. So your brand or your image is how others perceive you. It's the vibe you give off. It's how you make their lives easier or maybe not easier. It's the energy you bring, etc. You don't need to create your brand, and I'm saying that in quotes. I wish you all could see me, but you don't need to create it in the sense that it's not something outside of you, right? It's not like a new you that you're creating. It's just, again, being more intentional and mindful about what you're already putting out there and connecting the dots. And I'll get into what that means in a little bit here, more detail. So this is one of those times where I'd love for you to jot down a few notes about how you want to be perceived. So again, this is what branding or your image or your message, this is what it's all about. So take a few seconds and just jot down how you would like to be perceived. And think about it specifically from a professional standpoint. So how do you want people in the professional world to perceive you? Is it innovative or friendly or competent? Whatever those words are that come up for you, just take a few seconds and jot those down. All right, so if you got those down, and of course you can always add to them, the next thing you want to think about is your audience. So you want to think about who's actually going to be perceiving you. So not just professionals or employers, but specifically who is it going to be? For example, if I'm looking to be an elementary school teacher, I likely want to highlight different things that if I'm going to go into corporate finance, for example, because the audiences are different. They have different characteristics. They look for different things in employees. So take one more second to jot down, and it's okay if you don't know exactly who your audience is going to be at this point, but think through who your audience is. Is it people in a corporate office? Is it people in a academic setting? Is it a medical setting? Just jot down a few notes about who specifically your audience is going to be or is currently. If you can get really specific here, that's great. But if you need to keep it kind of high level and broad for right now, that's okay as well. Just any details or notes you have about who that audience will be. Okay, so now my least favorite question, and perhaps yours as well, is the idea of how you will be memorable. So I think this is a very anxiety-inducing question. It is, at least for me. So oftentimes when we're asked, like, well, how are you different, or what's unique about you? Our brains immediately go to skills or experiences or tangible things that we can think of. Whereas what we often don't think about is our personalities, who we are as people. And that can actually make us much more memorable and much more stand out than our skills and experiences. Sometimes I think, I remember when I graduated college, it was like, well, everyone has a business degree, or everyone has this degree that I have. We're all looking for similar jobs. You know, what do I have that's any different than any of these people? And it was my personality. It was me. It was my uniqueness of just being that is actually going to make me the most memorable. So I remember when I was searching for jobs in higher education, and I originally went in saying the most memorable or unique thing about me was my business background. That's what really set me apart. And while that set me apart, it wasn't unique on its own. What was unique was actually the way that it made my brain think. So because of that experience, I was often the one in higher education saying, how are students going to find out about this event? It's great if we create all these meaningful things, but how are they going to find out about it? And that actually came from my business or marketing experience. So that's what made me unique, rather than just saying, I have a business background, because several people might have that. So all that to say, what you want to try to think about is, again, your skills and experiences. Those certainly make you unique, and we certainly want to highlight those. But don't forget to think about your personality and what you bring to the table, your characteristics, in addition to those skills and experiences. So right now, if you have some good thoughts in your head, again, feel free to write those down. Any key characteristics that you want to highlight, any things that you think will personally help you be memorable right now. And this is something we'll build on throughout the process. So if you don't have your genius answer down, that's okay, but just keep this question in the back of your mind of, how will I be memorable? All right, so this is my biggest pet peeve about personal branding. Sometimes we think that means we can't change, right? So once I've determined what my brand is, I can't possibly change that thing. And my advice to you is be consistent, but not rigid. So just because you say, that these are my strengths and these are my skills today, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to highlight those with every audience you talk to or in each opportunity that you have. So in one interview, they may be looking for communication skills, might be the most important thing to them. And in another interview, it might be your leadership experience that's most important to them. If you highlight those things differently in both of those interviews, that's actually that's smart. That's a good thing to do. That doesn't mean that you're fake because you highlight one thing about your personality or your experience over another. That's knowing your audience, what we talked about earlier. So I think sometimes there's this fear or this feeling of fakeness once we start to talk about our brand. And I want to say, if it feels fake to you, revisit yourself, revisit who you are, and stop trying to create something outside of you. So you can and you must tailor your message. That is one of the most important things. If we can teach you anything throughout this job search process, it's that tailoring your message is important. If it feels exhausting while you're talking about your brand or when you're creating these messages, that might be a sign to you that's not actually authentic with who you are. So it shouldn't feel tiresome or exhausting or like you're trying to create something brand new. It should be who you are and your experiences that you have and just communicating those. Again, your brand should be coming from within you, not forced upon you. It shouldn't be something that you're trying to embody, for example. Now, all that to say, that doesn't mean that you can't certainly have skills and strengths and experiences that you want to gain, things that you haven't quite got yet, but that you do want to gain. That's perfectly okay. But that's part of your brand. That's not creating a whole new one. Think of it more as kind of building blocks rather than new structures, if that makes sense. And along those same lines, your brand is a story. It's not a logo. So you're not like Coke. You don't just get to put your, initials out there. And well, maybe you do. If you do, perhaps you should be leading this job search group. But for most of us, we can't just put our initials out there and people know what that means or who we are or what we bring to the table. Your brand is a story. It's everything. It's who you are. It's all the experiences that you've had. It's all your skills and your strengths, and that's going to develop throughout time, and that's okay. Again, you can build on your brand, and you should build on your brand as you go throughout your life. It should evolve just like you do. You should, again, constantly be refining it and understanding who you are, and just work on connecting the dots. So, maybe you didn't think about this experience that you had in customer service, for example, as you didn't really put a lot of weight or a lot of meaning in that. But if you connect those dots and see, actually that experience in customer service really helped my problem solving and communication skills, something I didn't gain maybe from my other experiences. So we want you to just connect the dots between the experiences that you have as, small, again, I'm air quoting here, as small as they may seem. Connect those dots so that when you do communicate your message, it's a holistic message of who you are, pulled from all of these areas, not just, again, what you feel like that day, for example. All right, so my cheesiest slide by far, but self-awareness is key to this process. I love Michael's quote here. He said, "People don't take personal branding seriously, but if we do a focus group for a bottle of bleach, why wouldn't we do it for ourselves?" And so perhaps you don't want to go out and set up your own focus group on yourself. I understand that, but I would really encourage you to talk to people that you know and trust. Perhaps your mentors, your friends, your family, whoever it is. And if you don't have that circle, let us know because we'll be that circle for you. But talk to those people and figure out what you're putting out into the world, what vibes you're giving off. Kind of do a focus group on yourself, if you will. And I would say when you do get that feedback, resist the urge to change or to justify who you are. And more accept that and build that into your story or your brand. I think oftentimes when we hear anything about ourselves, sometimes even if it's good information, we have a tendency to want to change that or justify it. And so I would say resist that urge. All right, so also another way to think about this self-awareness. Glenn Lopis, a writer for Forbes, was talking about the idea of being mindful in all of these interactions. And he said, think about the myriad of interactions that we have in our working lives. So meetings, conferences, meetups for you all in your job search process, it's interviews, networking events, conversations you have. And he says, in all of these cases, we should be mindful of what others are experiencing when they're around you. They're all like job interviews. In your case, they are all job interviews. And it's in that sense, you're being evaluated at every one of these. And he says, this will cause a shift in your perspective. When you start to see yourself living through the lens of a brand or your image, you will become more mindful of how you approach the personal brand you are trying to define and aiming to live. So I think self-awareness naturally can be a little scary when you start to be aware of everything you're putting out in the world. But until you're aware of that, you can't be any more intentional or mindful of that. You have to get a sense of what you're putting out into the universe for you to be able to be mindful about it in any way. So we've talked a lot about so far kind of just the idea of brand and your image and what it means. And now we're going to talk a little bit about some of those strategies. So once you do a lot of, and this is a lot of personal kind of self-work as figuring out, who you are, what you bring to the table, then you want to start thinking about how you're going to communicate that to the world or to your audience specifically. So there's quite a lot of strategies out there. For example, if you can think about, social media, LinkedIn, networking, your resume, that's a tool or a strategy to communicate who you are as a person and what you're going to bring to your future job. So you want to, again, combine the idea of, who you are and what you're trying to say, but also think about your audience when you're defining these strategies. Because if you are going to be, let's use school teachers, or let's use doctor, for example. If you're going to be a doctor, I'm not very up on my medical job searching, but I can't imagine that Facebook is a place that they're going to find a lot of doctors. Perhaps I'm wrong, but what I mean by that is that you pick a strategy that's going to fit the audience and the field that you're going into. I saw for most of you, there was a lot of people looking in the journalism, marketing type world. And so for you all, the beauty is that there's, the strategies, kind of the sky is the limit for you all. But for some of you looking for more specific or less connected fields, you want to be really smart about what those strategies are. And so this is some of that individual conversation that we'll have with you all, and also discussion groups on the LinkedIn group about, hey, I'm looking to be a school teacher, so what strategies do you all suggest for me? We highly encourage you all to do that. So I would say what's always been helpful for me is to make a list, and kind of a 2-column list. On the left side, I think about all of the skills, experiences, or strengths that I want to have. So I just list, thinking about who my audience and my market is, I list all the things that I think they will be looking for. And then on the right-hand side, I start to kind of make either ticks or, a circle of saying, these are things I already have, and here's the examples of how I have them. Or these are things I need to get. And so that will give you kind of a list of, here's the stuff I already have, here's the experience and skills that I already can communicate, and here's the ones that I need to gain before I start communicating them. If you can see my lovely joke there, I said, find the Kim to your Kanye. And what I mean by that is, regardless of your feelings of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, their joining as a couple was really genius in the marketing world, because Kim Kardashian, if you all are not familiar, reigns in the reality TV world, and that's her audience. And Kanye West reigns, if you will, well, at least in some people's minds, in the rap world. Two very, very different audiences. They sell very, very different messages. By them coming together, they were able to reach an even broader audience and communicate a message even more effectively. And so when I say find the Kim to your Kanye, I mean find those experiences and skills that are going to complement and make you more effective in communicating your message. So perhaps that means broadening your audience, and for some of you that might actually mean shrinking your audience, just depending on what you're looking for. So get that list down, and I'm going to give you just a couple seconds here to start building that list for yourself. So again, 2 columns on the left, what you want to have or what you think people in your market or your audience are looking for, and then on the right, what you making those marks on either I have it or I need to go get that. So spend a few seconds building that list for yourself. So a quick note on strategies. I mentioned a lot of kind of big, a little more ambiguous strategies like social media or networking. Those are not very well defined things, but know that strategies can also be things like becoming a better writer. And maybe there's certain, classes or YouTube videos or articles that you will read to improve your professional writing. It can be things that seem can come across as seemingly small, but will actually help you just as much in your search. So start to kind of break down those bigger, more ambiguous strategies to some more specific or concrete things. And again, we're going to help you throughout this entire process on defining these and working through these, but just keep that in mind that they don't always have to be huge things like networking. We can break them down into smaller tools or strategies. The last thing I'll say about strategies is find a way to make them a part of your routine. So Linda's going to talk a little bit about this in managing the job search process as well. But oftentimes they feel really outside of us and they feel daunting. But if you can find a way, for example, let's say LinkedIn is going to be one of your strategies. Maybe you make a kind of a rule for yourself that you're going to post on LinkedIn twice a week. You're going to share an article that you just read, or you're going to start a discussion in the group. And that's going to be your thing, is to post twice a week. Or maybe you're going to get lunch with someone new once a week or once every 2 weeks. Try to start building these into your routine, because I think oftentimes we view job search process as something very outside of us. And as much as we can bring it into our kind of our daily routine or our lives, it'll start to become more natural and less daunting or overwhelming. Okay, so I've been behind the screen. You all didn't get to see my red face this entire time, but I am very warm. And if you all don't know this already, if you haven't visited us in the Career Center, we don't have air conditioning, so we get a little steamy here in the summer. But I just want to say that today was really about just getting the idea of what a brand or your image is. And this is going to inform everything that we do for the rest of the sessions. So I would really encourage you to again, this isn't a class, so we can't give you homework, but if I was going to give you homework, it would be to really think through this for yourself. And like I said, it's going to be an evolving process, but start to think about what skills and characteristics about me do I want to communicate? What stands out about me? What am I missing and need to find still? Really think through those things for yourself and kind of start your brand workbook, if you will. Speaking of workbook, we are going to give you some handouts at the end of each session so that you can go back and work through these. So I've put together a pretty extensive brand workbook for you all, and I also have some other resources that other people have put together. And so we'll be giving you tools at the end of each of these sessions so that you can continue this thought process as we go. I do just want to say that it might have seemed weird to start with this one, but without knowing yourself and being aware of what you bring and what you want to bring to other people, you're not going to have a successful search. There's going to be a disconnect. What we never want you to do, or what we discourage you from doing, is kind of target shooting. And by that we mean just sending out your resume to as many people as possible, connecting with as many people on LinkedIn as you possibly can. Any job, you'll be open to any job. There is something okay and good about being open and flexible when you're job searching, but we want you to be strategic in your job search, and thinking through your brand will really help you be more strategic and, again, intentional about who you talk to and who you reach out to, who you interview with, that sort of thing. So thank you so much. This concludes our very first session. I hope it wasn't too painful watching on your end. Again, your homework is to post in the LinkedIn group, introduce yourself. We're really excited to get to know you all more. You are welcome to reach out to Linda, me, or Sarah at any time if you have any questions or just want to talk through something individually. But otherwise, starting those comments and groups discussions in the LinkedIn group will be the main way that we communicate throughout this process. So anything, any changes with any platform that we use or tools we use, we will now post it in the LinkedIn group. So make sure you join that. And again, email me if you haven't been able to do that so far. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you on Thursday.